Hey everyone, it's Kai, and it is Monday, so that means it's time to talk about some big JP tournaments, right? It's Big JP Monday. Now, I don't know, I don't know that's what we're gonna call it, but it's a good time to talk about it because Set 2 just came out in English, and if you are a meta dog, you will want to know the best decks, right? What is happening and how to build it, right? So, perfect time, right? We'll just go through all the tournaments, the big tournaments that happened over the past week in Japan, and that aren't just locals. And maybe it'll give you ideas on how to build it, right? So we've got quite a lot of standard games, or standard lists to go through today, and let's just get right into it, right? So first off, we got the MIA VGCS. This is a 24-team tournament, so that means there's 72 people joining it. There is a top 8 breakdown. So here we've got Dragon Empire with 5 Nirvanas and 2 Overlords. Then you got Dark States of 8 Bruce. Throw that Barrow Magnus out there. Of course, this is top 8 breakdown. Keter Sanctuary, we had 7 Bastions and 1 Hex Orb. For Stoicheia, we had 1 Magnolia. Right, that was top 8. So basically 24 decks. This was the entire breakdown. Unfortunately, no Brand Gate, right? No Brand Gate, which is pretty interesting. None of people have been saying how good Prison is, and Prison sure is getting better. And Orphis, definitely something that the West really likes, but nowhere to be seen. So kind of interesting, So first place team, we've got Murataku, Kirito, and Bosseto. Okay. And they brought Bruce, so this is a pretty standard kind of Bruce list right now, maybe. 2 Colossus, I'm not a huge fan of, but this is kind of seeing some play in the JP list. Just random 2 Colossus, of course, just still going with the 4 Leonard, no Edens. I personally kind of like the Edens over the Colossus. Also managed to fit in 1 20k shield. This is kind of some, if you have an extra slot, this is where you can put that card in. They've taken out Acrobat Presenter, totally. So yeah, we've got the core builds with like the 4 Hell Dives. The rest of it is just, trying to find space for things they like. Also, again, you can see the low reliance on crits. They'd rather just farm, good front triggers with 20k shields. They still want the draw because you kind of want a bit of draw. And yes, they went full rainbow with this one. Now, next one, we had Dragon Empire. This is the Nirvana list that we've been seeing a lot of. This one is kind of interesting because he's only running 2 Togashirashi, and normally a lot of people will run like 3 or 4, especially when they're playing something like 4 Virina, which is a heavy Soul Blast component. Also running 1 Valiente, which is, I think mostly we see it either at like 2 or 0 now. So kind of interesting how he's kind of sacrificed some slots from the Soul Charge engines to add more Soul Blasting engines, but I guess you don't really need to use this effect that often. It just hits numbers by itself, which is kind of nice. But the rest of it, you can see that, taking out some crits for fronts. Well, actually, he took out draws for fronts. Sorry, so he took out draws for fronts, and yeah, pretty cool. And then lastly, we have the Bastion deck, the good old tried and true. Basically, no changes from your old list except for adding the form ups and the front trigger. That's it. Right, cool. Second place team was Kanoto, Iwamura, and Hiramatsu, and then they brought Nirvana. So again, Nirvana showing it's good, right? At the beginning, so no Nirvana, lots of Overlord, and it's basically kind of switched now. People finally realizing how to play and get good with Nirvana. This one ran 2 Valientes and 3 Togashirashi. This is the key cards, and then 3 Virinas here, which is just overall fine. They found slots for the Valientes and the extra Virina by like sacrificing like 1 Aruna and maybe 1 Togashirashi. I think just 3 is a perfect number though, but the sacrifice was the Aruna. So yeah, pretty nice list. Again, took out the draws for the fronts, and then they brought the Bruce, no Colossus Bruce, which is kind of cool, but also no Eden. So they've managed to fit in the Acrobat Presenters again. 7 draws, no crits, right? In the Bruce deck, the value of like the triggers seem very, very, I guess they don't value crits because you could literally just kill from 2 with just huge multi-attacks. At the same time, the value of like the defensive power of the crit is just kind of irrelevant. You'd rather just draw more into the perfect odds and also survive like the mirror match or something like that. And then the 20k shields are like the next important points in the breakdown, right? So if you're not drawing nulls, if you're not drawing this, then you're dying, and then your 7 draw just lets you draw more pieces. And sure, they're terrible defensive cards, right? 5k, absolute garbage on defense when you have to guard with it, but if you think about it in a different way, a lot of the times when you're guarding like another Bruce's numbers, when they're hitting like 50k plus multiple times, that draw as a crit sometimes just isn't enough anyway. So overall, I think this is pretty interesting. There's a lot of ways to build the trigger lineup for Bruce, and you know, it's up to you to decide. And then lastly, we've got the Bastion. I don't think well, this guy's actually running Rafalsos, so kind of different. He's still running a lot of Dark Strain as well. So yeah, this is a bit more different than you'd find from all the other Bastion decks. You're running three new cards. 3 new cards. Is actually just not running Fasado, which is actually kind of insane. Yeah. All right, moving on. On third place, we have Oyasumi, Niji, and I think this is something Goe. Like I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't get the name for that. They brought Nirvana, so wow, Nirvana in like pretty much every list so far. This one ran no Valiente. It ran 4 Togashi Rachi, extra Virina as well. Was able to fit in the 4 Aruna as well. And then just, you know, the trigger lineup has just been the same. And this is kind of similar, right? You see the flex slots are like the Virina, the Valiente, Togashi Rachi, and then the this Aruna. How many of that do you want? But so like apart from that, this deck is slowly being figured out, right? This deck is slowly being figured out. The flex slots are basically what I just mentioned before. It's just basically the numbers game from there. And then second was another Bruce. Again, we see the Colossus hooking its ugly head out. Very similar to the first build. Won't go too much into it. And then we got the Bastion, similar to every single build out there. Won't go too much into it. And then fourth place, we have Nero, Alpaca. Yeah, Alpaca, we know this name. And then Hero. And the lists were just the 2 Colossus builds that we've just been seeing with 7 draws. And then here we've got just the Bastion list that we've been seeing all the time. Last, I've got an Overlord list, so this one's not a Nirvana list. Here, you know, the 15k beta, Tensha Stead, pretty much core. It's just a question of how many of the 15k shields you want to run, how many of the 15k beta do you want to run. Some people don't like running defensive cards. They just want to run more betas, vice versa, things like that. So yeah, it's just that's basically the small flex slots there. And then moving on, we have the Hiroshima VG Taikai. It was a 32-player tournament singles. First place was actually just a Bruce deck. This one is running very, very high rarity stuff, but he's also running 4 Edens, which is kind of not the stand in the metagame. A lot of people are cutting Edens for just running Lenders only, but he's also running like 3 Mabels, right? 3 Mabels for the triple drive. He's also running crits, right? Crits, funnily enough, have been a kind of a weird non-staple index, but I think this is the draw, right? So he's running Rainbow, but with the triple drive, and so this is a very heavy counterblast kind of build in a way, heavier than others at least. Hellblast, Eden, Mabel, all requiring 1, but overall the rest of the deck is just pretty free, so it doesn't really matter there. Second place was a Bastion, and this is just the same Bastions as we've been seeing all the time, so we won't get too much into it. And then fourth place, because third place didn't show, it's just another Bruce deck. This one's not the same as before. This one's just a 4 Leonard build with Marjories, Helldives. Only 3 Helldives, which is kind of interesting. He's also still running Mabel, right? 2 Mabels, 2 dogs, and then the rest is just triggers, right? Bruce triggers, yeah. So overall, apart from, it seems like Hiroshima likes running some of the Mabels still. That we've slowly been seeing this card get phased out of the other decks. So pretty interesting. Now onto the other tournaments. We have over the BVFL tournaments. This one is won by Dai Kaigen, I think, with Nirvana, and then Asakura with Bastion, and then Tomo with Bastion, and then Ryo was in top 4 as well with Bruce. So let's take a look at the decks. So Nirvana, this is the one that won. This is a no Valiente deck, but also still being able to put in like, he puts in like, because he's running 4 Togashi Rashi, able to put in 4 Virina, but also he's running this card. It is Kizan Reiji, and this is just, I've kind of talked about in the build that, my Nirvana build that I put in the channel. Kind of interesting card, is a once per turn counterblast, soul blast 1, and you can retire something in the same column. One of your opponent's card in the same column as this card. So it kind of locks down columns and makes it annoying for opponents to to pop off. But the other thing is that it uses a soul, and for Togashi Rashi, usually you do go through, you have excess soul that you can just spend with Kizan Reiji, which is kind of pretty nice, getting that extra retire. So Nirvana again, taking the dubs, right? Second place was just your good old Bastion, nothing really special there. Third place was just not so much good old Bastion. Got the two Pridefuls, got the Painkiller Angels. Painkiller Angel has been played recently just so you can kind of counter the Leonard matchup a bit better by making empty slots. And overall, you know, it makes your deck slightly inconsistent because there's more ones in the deck, but because you have triple drive now, there's a higher chance of you still hitting a 3, and it's all good, right? So Prideful Dragon, definitely not something I would be running because it's just, the requirement is just insane. But, you know, if you're a budget player, Prideful Dragon's pretty good. And then lastly, we've got the Bruce. And the Bruce is just 3 Eden Bruce, I guess. That's the main difference. It's also running crits. Right, we've been seeing quite a few Bruce decks not running crits, right? Just 7 draws. So it's a bit more standard than normal. And this is probably something I'd be more looking at when trying to build the Bruce decks. So moving on to the next over the BVFL tournament. Sorry, the previous one was held at Honatsuki, and this one is held in Yokohama, and this one was won by Harumaki with Nirvana. Again, another Nirvana taking the dubs. And then next we got Nuki with Varia? Udiel? Sorry? Udiel? Okay. And then top 4 we had Excelman. Recognize that name with Bruce. And then Nanase Maru, also a well-known name with Bastion. So first, we have the Nirvana deck here. Again, the Kizan Reiji taking the spots here. No Valiente. So kind of an interesting meta difference, right? We're seeing more of this card in maybe up north a bit more. But then in the other places, not so much, right? I think Mie is more to at Saka, so a bit down south. So yeah, it seems like in the near Yokohama, I think Honatsuki is also near Yokohama / Tokyo region. We're seeing these Nirvanas run a bit more of this, which is kind of interesting, right? And then next, it's like local meta difference, like local meta differences and no Valientes, right? Is it draws? Yeah, it looks like draws instead of fronts. Okay. Next we had Uriel, which is from the new Monster Strike deck. The key card of it is, the key Ryland of this is Uriel here. What she does is that when you Persona Ride, you can call cards. So when it attacks, if you've Persona ridden this turn, you can call cards from your soul to empty rearguard slots. So makes multi-attacks. A bit hard to read, unfortunately. It also has a retire effect, but basically a lot of this deck is just revolving around, you know, you're getting free cards in a way, just from being able to call cards from your soul, which just use this one. Also, if you want to, you can make multi-attacks by emptying your front row and then calling things out, because there's cards that do just empty themselves and go to soul. And then because of your nice gacha deck, you get to just make a full field. So that's where the power is coming from. It's kind of interesting to see it already being topping already in the top 2. So pretty cool. And then third place we have your good old Bruce. Yep, nothing much. We've got the 3 Edens here. And then lastly we have a Bastion deck, which is just, again, your good old Bastion deck. So that's it for JP this week. Lots of Bastions, the Bruce. Unfortunately, there's a Monster Strike that you probably can't play in English. But I think then the Nirvana techs, I think, are the big takeaways today. Lots of Nirvana seems to have evolved quite a bit over the months, and now, you know, now that's out in English, you guys can kind of try it out, see how good it is. All right, make your waves. All right, so let me know what you guys think about all the decks that we've seen today, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.